Hi everyone, in this video I want to talk about Helltide. This is one of the major endgame activities in Diablo 4 on launch, and it is something that is actually quite relevant for your character progression. So you can see this world tide here on the world map. This is this red area that just keeps popping up in random places of the world. So there are certain zones that can become Helltide, and then there's a timer where sometimes it's active and sometimes it's inactive. And when you go there, while it's active, the entire zone will be transformed and there will be a lot more demons running around. Everything is higher level. There's like special events and bosses popping up. And you can also find those cinders. You can see on the top right corner, this is the cinder count. And as you defeat enemies in those areas, or you click on collectibles, herbs or something like that, you can find these cinders. And then there are these like chests spread out. You can see one here on the map right now. You can go there and use those cinders to open those chests and get certain pieces of loot. But it's not just so much about the loot itself that is so good about Helltide. It is actually the special materials that you can get there. Because, let's be real, loot you can get anywhere really. So it's not really required to farm Helltide for that. But what you do want to farm is Forgotten Souls. You see that here, this boss here, for example, this mini boss that just appeared was one of those Helltide bosses, and it dropped 2 Forgotten Souls. And likewise, you can use your cinders to open these chests and also get more Forgotten Souls and maybe a good bunch of loot. So you see this here, this is one of the biggest, this is actually the biggest chest that I just opened, which is the chest of mysterious gifts, which is like a special one that has more loot and just like random amounts of stuff. But you see here there's 2 Forgotten Souls again and 3 Forgotten Souls and a bunch of Fiend Roses. These are all crafting materials that you will need for the blacksmith and for the occultist. And then you see there's like 2 ancestral rings, for example. A bunch of elixirs can drop out. Another like ancestral amulet. So generally relatively valuable. And you can see here why this is so valuable. So this is the blacksmith upgrade window, and I have a sacred pair of gloves. And if you try to get them to rank 5, so 5 out of 5 upgrades, you will need those Forgotten Souls. So this is the Forgotten Souls. You need 2 of them, for example, for this glove, to get it to 5 out of 5. So as you rank up your items, it costs more and more materials. So usually just the common, then the magic, then the rare, then the legendary, and then finally Forgotten Souls. And if you want to get your maxed out items, which is definitely quite important for your late game min-maxing at least, you want those Forgotten Souls. And this chest that I opened here is by far the best to farm those Forgotten Souls, or just the most efficient one to open in general. It is actually not always there, so this mysterious gifts chest is a kind of special one. It's always something that I recommend to seek out first before you start spending your cinders when you're doing Helltide, because it definitely has a lot more stuff than the other chests. But you can also just go around and open whatever you want to improve in your character. So there's a chest for rings, there's a chest for weapons, for helms, for boots, whatever. And you can kind of target farm and kind of try to get new items in a certain slot so that you can maybe progress your character right now. But generally, those mysterious gifts are the best ones. You want to try to find them. Now, how long does it actually take to farm enough of these cinders? So you can see here, there's actually the timer. So conveniently, we can just check that. I have 0 of these cinders and we have 52 minutes remaining. And let's see if I actually start farming them. So here at like 51:40, we start farming them. And if we jump forward, we have 175 by 43 minutes mark. So around 8 minutes actually it took me to get those 175 cinders to open this one chest. And as I mentioned, this is the most expensive one. You can actually open others for, I believe, 75 for armor slots, and I think 125 for like weapon slots. So they have a kind of a different cost, but it's somewhere in that range. But generally, this is the best one in the overall value. So I noticed that the best way to farm cinders is usually just to like make your way through the zone, roam around a little bit, try to find like big monster packs, because you can just get like, 3, 4, 5 cinders or something like that from like one big monster pack. They do drop quite frequently. And also on your way, roaming around the zone, you will find those collectibles that can also have cinders. And you find events. So those local events here, those orange circles, they are generally the most valuable. So you want to try to like maybe find like 2, 3 or 4 of these spots and just like roam around the area and try to do these events whenever they pop up. So you see here right now, I found an event. I have 20 cinders and I have like 41 minutes on the timer. Now if we jump forward to finishing the event, yeah, this was like around a minute or so, and I got like almost 40 of those cinders. So from all the monsters that were there, and then the final reward from the chest at the end. One other important thing to farm in those helltides are also the fiend roses. So this is yet another material. It's a herb that you can find. It looks like this. This is the fiend rose here. It's a little plant that only grows when the helltide is active. And those are used for re-rolling legendaries at your occultist. So in addition to potentially requiring a forgotten soul when it's an ancestral or a sacred item, you also need a fiend rose to even attempt to reroll any legendary. So even a normal legendary. You might have noticed this in the open beta, for example. You were not actually able to reroll anything on your legendaries because the fiend rose was missing. So this is where you get it. The fiend roses generally come in fast enough, I would say. It's not really one thing to worry about. It's more the forgotten souls that are the bigger problem, because you get fewer of these and they don't grow on trees, literally, like the fiend rose. So you have to get them exclusively from those helltide bosses and from the chests. And without forgotten souls, not only can you not upgrade your items to the maximum and get those insane multipliers on the base stats of your items, but you also cannot actually enchant your sacred or ancestral items. So you see here, if you put like a sacred item, this is a sacred glow here, then you will also need to spend 1 forgotten soul per attempt of rolling a stat. So it is very difficult to actually get the perfect items in the end game because of this super high cost of actually rolling them. So you have to farm this helltide, get those forgotten souls, get those fiend roses, and then you're kind of set up to try to maximize your gear by rolling them on the occultist. On the other hand though, if you spend like, for example, like half an hour of farming helltide here and there, open like, 4 or 5 of those chests, you're probably going to end up with something like 5 to 10 of those forgotten souls. So you can upgrade 1 or 2 or 3 items. You can maybe roll a few times on one of the good pieces that you found. But of course, in general, you don't want to waste your materials, and you want to spend those fiend roses and especially forgotten souls only on those items that are going to stick. So once you are in torment difficulty, once you have like 725 plus item power or so for the highest tier of stats, this is when you want to start trying to maximize your gear with those materials. One other neat thing to know is that there is actually an indicator on destructibles and clickables that you can see here. So it has like this red glow, and this means that these destructibles have cinders. So you can actually like run past them and see that some of them have cinders. So you see here now when it gets destroyed, it will pop out these cinders. It has like 4 or so. So it can be quite valuable. And not all of these like, rocks and plants and all kinds of like things they can find, in the areas have the cinders. So it's only those that actually have this glow. Also, another cool thing is that while you are progressing, for example, your renown, you can actually do side quests while in the Helltide area. So all of the side quests still work. I believe strongholds are actually disabled, so you cannot go into strongholds, but those just become part of the Helltide zone basically until it's over. But side quests you can kind of combine with Helltide Farming, for example. So this is maybe also something to keep in mind when you do your renown progression. Maybe focus more on the dungeons when Helltide is down, and then try to find some side quests that lead you into Helltide areas when it's active. Right now, I'm actually not quite sure if Helltide can spawn on low levels in like the veteran and adventurer difficulties when you have skipped the campaign on a fresh character. But at the very least, on your first character, you will have to progress to at least nightmare difficulty to find Helltides. But it doesn't seem like there is really like a scaling of the materials that you find. So even nightmare difficulty, you should be able to farm those forgotten souls and fiend roses just fine, and you can save them up for later. And it's always good to have like a bunch, like let's say a dozen or 2, ready to go so that you can always reroll or upgrade new items that you find. Also, you don't have to worry that when you leave the area, you're gonna lose your cinders or anything like that. They only get lost when the timer ends. So here you see I was teleported out of the zone. I started sorting my stash and my inventory at a blacksmith, and then we go back and we are here again with the 130 cinders that I had when I left off. But beware, you lose half of your cinders when you die. So especially when you're trying to roam around for those stashes and trying to find like the mysterious gift box, for example, then you might want to be careful to not just randomly die to some of those bigger monsters or to some of those Helltide bosses that roam around the area. In any case, I have to say, I really like the Helltide actually. It has a really cool atmosphere. I really like this like fire raining from the sky and the demons popping up out of everywhere, and just the way that you can kind of target farm stuff. I wish that there was maybe even a bit better way of like a gear acquisition in Helltide, so that you can kind of find the boxes that you want. So I think one problem is that people might expect that you can actually just like, target farm your Shaco, aka Harlequin Crest, easily in Helltide or so. So I gotta say, forget about that, because you don't actually find the exact chest that you want that easily. So there may be like a helm chest somewhere in the corner of this huge area, but you have to like ride around for like 5 minutes to actually find one. And it also seems like there's not many of the same types. It's kind of like there's one ring, one boots, one pants, one gloves, maybe a second one of some of these here and there. And this is about it for how many chests there are. And they only come back the next time the Helltide spawns. In any case, this is how Helltide works and how it ties into the progression. So TLDR, farm those cinders, don't die, get those local events and those bosses going, and try to find as many Fiend Roses and Forgotten Souls, especially from the Mysterious Gift chest. So that's it. I wish you good luck with the launch on Diablo 4, and I'll see you guys next time.